Hello, everyone. My name is Maksym Dovgopolyi, and I'm the CEO and founder of SynergySoft. And we started back in 2019, and since then, we've been committed to helping our clients succeed with MuleSoft integration. And we are also proud to be MuleSoft technology partner. Besides running SynergySoft, I'm MuleSoft meetup leader in Geneva, Switzerland, and also MuleSoft mentor. This year, I was excited to be chosen as one of the top mentors for 2024. And through this mentoring program, I got the chance to meet Alan Dalley, a MuleSoft ambassador and the head of C4E at Network Rail. And I'm lucky to have Alan as my mentor in this mentoring program. Alan has led the Center for Enablement at Network Rail in the UK for 4 years now, bringing MuleSoft integration to one of the top rail networks in the world. We decided to do this interview because I believe there is a lot of we can learn from Alan's experience, and I think you, our followers, will find it really valuable too. So let's get started. Hi, Alan. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, even though it is very hot in the UK today, exceptionally hot. And I've just come back from holiday in the USA, where it was quite warm as well, but not as warm as this. But I'm good, thanks. Yeah. Very good.
Great. Thank you very much for accepting this interview and this idea, and very much appreciate that. Okay, my first question, could you please introduce yourself and share a brief overview of your personal journey?
Yeah, of course. So, as you said, my name's Alan Dalley. I am the Centre for Enablement lead for Network Rail in the UK. For those that don't know, Network Rail doesn't run any trains. It's just responsible for the actual infrastructure. So about 22,000 miles of track across the country, and the associated infrastructure like station or some of the stations and other assets that are actually on the railway. So that's my day-to-day job, is the Centre for Enablement lead, like I say, for probably about the last 4 years. Prior to that, I've got quite a long background in data governance and data management. I've also looked quite a lot at data quality in various companies. And before joining Network Rail, I was a consultant in the UK across many industries, including banking, pharmaceuticals, utilities, and fixed and mobile telecoms. So I'm a qualified enterprise architect as well. So when Network Rail actually started looking at integration technologies some 6 years ago now, maybe even 7, it was a logical move for me to move into that integration architecture space. And I think the skills that I had prior to coming into the MuleSoft world set me up quite well for that journey that we're now on, and it's a continuing journey.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And what motivated you to specialize in MuleSoft particularly, and how did you become C4E lead at Network Rail?
Like I say, some 6 or 7 years ago now, Network Rail realized that we had far too many point-to-point interfaces, which were becoming unmanageable. The configuration of them was a nightmare. Changes within systems really did pose many problems. So Network Rail at that time decided to start looking at a data integration tool. And I actually started in the team at the time when we were writing the tender documents to select an integration partner. So I wrote tender documents. I then went through the scoring mechanisms and all the submissions, and eventually, obviously, at the end of that process, Network Rail selected to work with MuleSoft, which was, in my view, was an excellent decision.
Right. Just for our audience, can you explain what a Center for Enablement is and its role in organization?
Yes. So I think that the one thing to say up front is that probably the Center for Enablement is going to be different in every organization. And the reason I say that is that generally, when you're introducing an integration technology, you're not introducing it into a greenfield site. So you may have other centre for excellence out there. You may have other integration technologies. But I think the key thing with the Centre for Enablement is that you're looking to drive integration, but also management, governance, and reusability of APIs. So I think that the key functions of the Centre for Enablement, in my view, are certainly to gather assets from all different parts of the business. And that's another reason why I say I think it will be different in every organisation, because some may just have a centralised development department, some may have regional development, and to really boost the C4E and make it the most effective you can, you're looking to engage with all of those parties to actually contribute to the platform that you're using for your integration. So publishing and socializing those assets is another big part of the Centre for Enablement. And I think in addition to that, one of the really key important points from my point of view is to actually enforce governance, because keeping control of the platform within the Centre for Enablement, we've shown through the work that we've done that it's actually boosted the reliability and the effectiveness and the consistency and accuracy of what we're actually doing. So we operate requirements governance, design governance, and code governance. And we manage the platform to actually separate the ability of development teams to actually do their development without worrying about what the actual platform is bringing to them, apart from the fact that they know they can use APIs. And then, of course, you've got to, as part of that, evangelize. And that's part of the work that we do, is going out and talking to as many people as possible to get those APIs that you've got reused, and making sure that the APIs you're developing are developed with reuse in mind, because there's no point in developing an API that just simply replaces a point-to-point interface. We're looking to actually get rid of the point-to-point interfaces and, you know, make those APIs we're developing reusable. That's the key thing with the C4E.
Yeah, I see. Right. I think you partially answered, but still my following question: what are the key objectives of establishing a C4E in an organization like Network Rail?
You know, to go on from that, it is the establishment of a strategic platform. That's what the key thing is. You know, from an enterprise perspective, like I say, I'm a trained enterprise architect, as well as integration architect now. It's to ensure that you have got that strategic platform in place, and to really drive the reuse of APIs, and that in turn will support innovation within your company. It should, if things go well, it should accelerate development and drive innovation. And certainly within Network Rail, we have the possibility now to do things that we could not do before. We had APIs.
Yeah, thank you. And how does C4E support and enhance the use of MuleSoft within the organization?
Well, I think what we actually do is we've established the design and code governance, like I say, and we're constantly looking at how we can improve that development process. So we are looking at managing and enhancing the platform all the time. You will know with your company that, you know, there are new releases to MuleSoft all the time. We have to keep up to date with what's going on. So we're constantly evaluating the platform. I think the key thing is that while we're managing the platform, that takes away the burden, like I said before, from the development teams to actually worry about, you know, API development, API management, and particularly the monitoring and supporting of the APIs.
Yeah. Okay. And Can you share some of the most significant impacts or successes that the C4E model has brought to Network Rail?
Yes, I mean, there are a number of key areas because Network Rail is a really diverse organization. Like I say, we're basically a big engineering company. There are over 40,000 employees, 22,000 miles of track, and lots of other assets.
Yeah,
But it's also, within supporting that infrastructure, there's also a lot of other things that we have to do. And, a lot of the stuff that we do is like centralized. So like in every organization, there will be HR, there will be, health and well-being type work that needs to be done. There will be purchasing. And I think because of the nature that we said before of the point-to-point interfaces, we found that actually interacting not only internally but externally as well, both with other companies but also with the general public, really was not particularly good at the time. And we've always looked at putting passengers first. So one of the big things that we've done in the last year is we've looked at how we can improve, through the use of APIs and data, how we can improve the journey for people that are traversing across the network. So a lot of that is to do with things like lifts and escalators that exist within the stations. Because obviously if you're a disabled person in some way, or you have challenges, then it would help if you could actually plan which lift or escalator you're going to go to in the station before you actually get there. So we've done a lot of work in making that information available to third parties that have then built apps based on that information. Network Rail also is a large owner of property. So like I say, I mentioned stations, but we also have property that is underneath stations where retail outlets sometimes take up. That's been a particular theme over the last year where we've literally saved millions of pounds through the use of APIs where, we had like we call spaghetti diagram of interfaces, which we've now rationalized down to APIs. And that's a significant benefit. And I think the last one I'll mention is publishing data to the rail industry. We did do that before, but the way that we did it before was on an MQ hub. So we were just streaming data out. It had a limited number of places where people could come and consume that data. And we're now turning that round to actually provide API to rail industry partners and also the general public in some cases, for them to actually query using the APIs for the data they actually want to get hold of. So we've seen some significant benefits over the last year or two.
Great. Especially impressive. Sounds like you saved millions of pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Moving forward. My follow-up question: in your view, what is the biggest benefits of having C4E for businesses and organizations undergoing digital transformation? You already shared some of the benefits, but probably you can say something else.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really the improvement in the quality and volume of data that's available across the business. Because previously, when we had point-to-point interfaces, they were developed by a system to talk to or get data from another system. And they weren't really visible. And that's why they proliferated, because, a project here would develop an interface to another system. Another project would come along. We talk about siloed development. They would go, well, we need data from that system. So rather than have the visibility of the other interface, they would build another one. And hence you get that proliferation. So I think, the use of APIs has certainly improved the volume of data that's available to across the business, really, across the whole of the business. And it's also improved data quality. Now, we have to be very careful to say that, MuleSoft in itself is not a data quality tool. It would never claim to be a data quality tool. But the one way in which we can improve quality is by what I would call temporal quality. So people that are consuming data via an API are going to get that same data when they call the API. So if you've got multiple customers calling an API, then they will get that same data. Whereas, separate interfaces, depending on how they're written, could get data that's somewhat out of date. So data quality from that point of view, like I said before, separation really of the platform from the development capability. And I think it's not unfair to say continuous improvement across the actual provision of certainly the Centre for Enablement, but also what we call our API integration services, which is, the development area, the design area, and the governance that's provided by the Centre for Enablement. So I think those are the ways that we can benefit from that digital transformation.
Right. How does the C4E approach help in scaling and unifying MuleSoft implementations across large organizations like yours?
Well, I think one of the key things here, and maybe I should have mentioned it before, but one of the key things here for me is the actual production of foundational assets. This is one of the first things that we concentrated on when we set up the Centre for Enablement. We wanted to have those foundational assets that people could build upon. So, and by that I'm talking about common audit logging, common error messaging, anything that is central to the team and can be reused as a foundational asset. That is one of the first areas that I think you should probably focus on. And in addition to that, it's the establishment of policies, I think. You will know about, the policies that can be introduced. And certainly, that's one of the things that you would do with your customers, I'm sure, is to develop those policies and constantly review them. So I think that's sort of some of it. I think evangelization, again, is key. And then the other thing, again, which comes to mind as a really strong thing, certainly that I went through, is training. Making sure that training is available to everyone in the team that actually needs it. And this is one of the key things with setting up the Centre for Enablement, really, is that depending on your organization, again, you may have people that are familiar with integration technologies. Certainly we had a SOA team established within our organization. You may have other integration technologies, but the organization needs to focus on, what's the overall strategy for APIs? Are you going to migrate everything to MuleSoft, or are you going to work alongside other integration strategies? And once you've decided that, then that will form your training plan. And I think one of the things for me for the C4E is to actually make sure that people have the training that they need to be the best that they can be on the platform. And in fact, we made a policy right at the beginning of setting up the C4E that we wouldn't allow anyone onto the platform that didn't have the appropriate MuleSoft certifications.
Yeah, I see. And could you describe some of the challenges you faced as a C4E lead at Network Rail?
Yeah, I think the sort of a common theme probably across a lot of organisations at the moment, certainly in the UK, is funding. Times are tough. Our funding has been reduced in this new control period, as Network Rail is funded in 5-year control periods. So you're constantly trying to balance the best use of funding and persuading customers that, certainly customers that before have been used to developing point-to-point interfaces, that actually the use of an API, although initially may be more expensive, will lead to benefit later on. And one of the key decisions that we made right at the beginning was that in the 3-layer architecture, the system APIs, we would centrally fund the development of those system APIs. So that was a decision. We had to go with that. We had to fund that. And then selling APIs out to customers was another one of the big challenges. And because Network Rail had not really had an integration technology across the whole company, and it is a very diverse company, we've got a central function, but we've also got regions that have their own independent funding. Education and benefit, evangelization, explaining what APIs actually are, and trying to pitch I don't like using the word sale because I'm not a salesman, but pitching the actual use of APIs and what they actually are to customers is really, really important, because some customers you'll go to and say, can we help you with some APIs? And they'll go, yes, APIs, yeah, I know what they are. Other ones you will go to and they'll say, what's an API? So it's actually sort of, understanding your audience and actually being able to work at different levels of the organization to explain the benefits.
I just want us to return a few minutes earlier where you said that you saved millions of pounds because of C4E, but still founding is one of the most challenging parts of for C4E. Yeah. That's all like things that
and that's primarily the willingness of the customer to actually embrace what you're working with, because in that particular case, the customer was actually using Salesforce as its main system. So when you've got Salesforce and MuleSoft together now, the sell is not so difficult. It's when you're using what I would call old or legacy technology, that life becomes a lot more difficult, especially where you're in an environment where systems are just about to be retired and new systems are coming in. You have to make the argument to say, well, if we build an API now and you then replace the system in a year or 2 years' time, actually, we probably only have to change the system level API. We don't have to do all of the other work that would have been involved with a point-to-point interface. But it's getting people to understand the technology. And that's why I say, a big challenge is some people will go, yes, great, that's exactly what we want. We understand what we're doing. We will work with you. And they tend to be the good customers that are easy to work with. And other customers will be sort of more difficult, not because they want to be difficult, but either because their level of understanding is not as good, or they are doubtful about new technology. So it is very much, and as a C4E lead, I think I spend most of my time actually talking to people about, APIs at different levels of engagement.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. What have been some of your most valuable experiences while leading the C4E?
Oh, that's quite an easy one to answer, really. I think the most valuable experiences have been understanding the business more and getting involved with a lot more areas of the business, because integration technology, by its nature, is integrating lots of different systems. So although I've been at Network Rail for 17 years, each time I engage with a customer, there's a learning process there. And I think that one of the things that, and we'll come on to, I'm sure, later question, but I'll just say it now. One of the qualities I think you need as a C4E lead is probably to be a sponge, to take that information in and use it to your advantage. Working with customers, that's a really valuable experience because you get to understand their priorities and you get to understand with the way that they actually work. So as well as being a C4E lead, I'm also a neurodiversity coach. So I work with people that both outside work and inside work that have got a neurodiversity of some type, like ADHD or dyslexia, dyspraxia. And getting to work with a lot of different people across the business, especially where you've got a diverse organisation, it's really, to me, it's really, really interesting. That's a really valuable experience. It's also incredibly useful to work with your enterprise and business architects because you see, I think it's a almost a unique position in that you are looking from the business side with a customer and you're looking at the enterprise side from the enterprise architects to say, well, the business wants this. The enterprise architects are saying this is our way forward. How does that integration capability meet both of their demands? So that's from my point of view has been really interesting and a valuable experience. But also, I think the one thing that I would say as well that we've really learned right from the beginning is to keep strict governance and control of your platform. Don't let other parts of the business deploy APIs onto your central platform without some kind of governance taking place. We found that, we've had to go back and work on some APIs because we engaged with MuleSoft Professional Services some time ago now, and we're really lucky to have them on board to assist us. I would always encourage people, no matter where you are with your journey, to engage with either MuleSoft Professional Services or someone like your company to guide them through that journey, because the earlier you do that, the more benefit I believe it's going to bring to your organisation. And you're experienced in this area, Maksym. So, something like your experience with the Centre for Enablement, your experience with integration, and your company provide a really valuable service to companies that are just starting on the journey, or even are a little bit along the journey and are starting to wonder about, either the volume of work that they're doing or the type of work that they're doing. So, and I think the last one that I'll come to as my valuable experience is, from my point of view, communication. Like I've said, evangelization. And my journey through being a mentor to an ambassador has taken me on a personal journey from, working with the C4E, but then actually sort of saying, right, okay, well, we're seen as being a good C4E, so let's now start talking to people about it. And, I've talked at some of the conferences. I write a blog. I've got a YouTube channel that's, dedicated to MuleSoft. And I think if you are doing good work, like we are, and that this is one example of that, is to get that out there, to get the message out there.
Yeah, thank you. Great points. Thank you for sharing. How do you stay current with evolving technologies and methodologies in your role?
I was going to be a bit facetious and say don't have a personal life. I mean, I do spend a lot of time reading articles, looking at MuleSoft releases, talking to the MuleSoft success people. The discussions like we have provided sort of valuable feedback, because I always believe that the mentoring relationship is never a one-way journey. I've learned from you. Hopefully you will have learned from me. And, I talk to a lot of other people as well, both within MuleSoft and Salesforce. And I think, there are channels. Obviously, there's some YouTube channels. There's a lot of articles that go up onto the Salesforce website. There are blogs, medium.com, substack.com, where you can read about all the different things that are going on. You've got Twitch, which is the sort of Salesforce TV channel. So really, it's just engaging with those as much as you've got time for, really. Obviously, you do have to have a personal life, but there's never a spare minute in a day.
Yeah, let's say the additional question in this context, of this question that I asked you. You said that you're reading many articles, watching YouTube, and reading releases, and etc. My impression about MuleSoft in 2024 that the Anypoint platform entered in the year with many updates, changes, valuable things for customers, partners, and etc. It's AI, Einstein, Copilot, ICB, moving to Java 17 and Mule 4.6, whatever. What, based on your opinion, what is the most valuable things that we can take from the platform and apply this year for organizations, for businesses?
You're right. We seem to be at a period where there is lots of change, and each person has a limit to the amount of work that they can actually do. I mean, all joking aside, you do have to have a personal life. I think one of the things that certainly I do is rely on other people to look at specific areas. Now, I think one of the big areas for us this year, or this coming year, that we're looking at, well, three things really. The Java update, like you mentioned earlier. We're also looking at a possible move to Cloud Hub 2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and two other things actually. We're also looking at our DevSecOps pipeline to see if we can actually improve that. And then the use of AI. AI is a big topic at the moment. Certainly generative AI with the sort of generation of base code will be a big thing, I think, coming along. It's something that we're looking at the moment and evaluating it. And we're lucky that we've got people on board to actually help with that. But I think those all have to be balanced along with the work that you are engaged with at the time, the resources that you've got, and the funding that you've got. So, some of the things that we would like to do, we may not be able to do just because we don't have the resources at the moment. But it's trying to actually plan where the biggest benefit comes for the funding that you've got and the resources that you've got. And I think that's the key thing for me at the moment. There are things that we would love to do, but there's nothing at the moment that we absolutely mandatorily have to do.
Okay, I see. Thank you. What advice would you give to organizations looking for establishing their own C4E?
Yeah, and I think this is a very good question because we went through this previously, and we did make mistakes. I mean, you hopefully in my book, a mistake is only a mistake if you don't learn from it. And we did learn from it, and we learned quite quickly, I think. One of the things that I think you need to do right at the very beginning of your journey is to look at the business as it stands at the moment. And I mentioned briefly earlier on about, other integration technologies. Now, you need to get a view of your enterprise architects, your business architects, your senior managers, about what you want to do with those other integration technologies. Are you going to sit alongside them, or are you going to actually manage an exercise that brings them all into MuleSoft? And each organization will have its own answers. I made some assumptions at the beginning of the journey, which turned out to be wrong. And it cost us, I don't think it had a major impact, but it meant that we had to change the direction that we were going in with the C4E. And actually now, like probably 2 years on from, or maybe even 4 years on from that position, things have changed again. So things, constantly change. So I think you need to you need to keep an eye out of what's happening in the wider organization, certainly. Work out what resources you've got. Certainly, if you've got no internal capability then that's familiar with the tool, then do you engage with third parties like your company? Do you take on contractors, which is an option, or do you engage with a third party? So we're quite lucky in that we've got a third party that works with us, but we've also got MuleSoft Professional Services, which was, that they came in as a result of the impact of what I said earlier, in that we got a certain way down our path of which we thought. We asked them to come in and do an evaluation of where we were, and it didn't come back particularly well. So at that time, we decided to engage with a third party that had experience. So in our case, MuleSoft, but that may be a company like yours. Absolutely invaluable to do that. Being aware also, I would say, of the Catalyst methodology, because that certainly provides some collateral to work with. There are 6 playbooks and there are 3 delivery approaches. And those delivery approaches are very prescriptive about how you do things and what you do and who does them. And everyone that has got MuleSoft has got access to those. You can get access to the Catalyst. And I've spent a lot of time reading through that material. Some of it is really useful, but you have to, it's like every methodology, not everything applies to you. You have to pick and choose the bits that work for you. Certainly having the people with the correct skills and the correct training and the correct experience is what you actually need.
I see. Yeah, completely agree. Thank you very much. And from your experience, what are the critical success factors for C4E to truly add value?
So I think the first one is something that I've mentioned previously, but it is so important, I'm going to mention it again, is keeping control of your platform. So your platform, as in the Center for Enablement and the MuleSoft platform, the Anypoint platform, needs to be used by as many people as possible, but controlled by a few people. And I think that's the most valuable lesson, I think, as a critical success factor. If you allow people, different teams within your organization, especially if they're not MuleSoft certified, to deploy to your platform, you can very quickly run into chaos, especially if you don't enforce the use of the foundational assets that I talked about before. So keep control of the platform, introduce governance, introduce those foundational assets. And then once you've done that, always look for and insist that APIs that you're developing are focused on reuse, because like I said before, there's no point in using MuleSoft as a substitute for a point-to-point development tool. That's not the purpose at all, and you will not find the benefit if you do that. So you've got to have reuse built in. The other thing is always look at reuse. So when you get a customer who wants to use an API or thinks they have a requirement for an API, look at what you've got to see whether they can reuse something that you've actually got already. If you haven't, can you take what you've got already and modify it to actually be useful or to meet the business requirement? What we call a modification. So something that's not going to cost too much to do, and then only develop APIs as a last resort. So reuse, modify, build. That's always been the lesson. Communication is always a critical success factor. You need people who can talk about integration competently. You need people that can engage with customers. And, as I said before, I'm not in sales, but the C4E is almost, certainly in my circumstances, almost like a pre-sales role, in that you do end up talking to a lot of people about APIs at various different levels. And I think having the right people in the right role that can talk competently about what we're doing is one of the critical success factors. You know, you don't want a C4E that is really prickly or deeply intellectually, but can't communicate with customers. You need someone that, if anything, can communicate with customers, but can point people in the right direction if they want to talk in deeply technical terms.
Yeah, thank you. My following questions, let's say, there is my personal interest in this question. So how system integrators like SynergySoft, like us, can help with establishing C4E? What do you think?
I think the key thing here with Maksym is that you have got the experience. You've been through the process before. And anyone who is coming cold to the MuleSoft Anypoint platform or any integration technology, really, you need someone to hold your hand to take you through that foundational period. We like I said, we learned this lesson the hard way, in that we tried to do it with people that we thought knew what they were doing, and they did to a certain extent, but it wasn't optimal. The earlier you can engage with people that have been through the journey before, to me, that is money well spent, because you know, you and your guys, you know integration, you know the problems and the issues that people are going to face, and you can guide them. Once you're actually into the organization, and obviously it's going to take you time to understand what you're being asked to do and how that business actually works, because I'm sure you work across a lot of different industries. You have to be competent, or at least fairly competent, in the business that you're actually working in, to understand things like, you know, we have governance, we have you know, standards that we need to keep to. Certainly in like the pharma industry where I've worked, you know, there are certain things that you can do with data and certain things you can't. In telecoms, you've got international telecom standards. So you need to understand those sorts of things within the business, and it will take you time to do that. But I think that is time well spent. And even if you're there for the first, you know, months or year or even 2 years, the organization that you're working with can review, you know, how you're working on a periodic basis, whichever you agree between you, and determine how much value you bring ongoing. So it may be for you that you want to be there for the first year, but then you know, they go their own way. You may want to be there for 2 years while they do all their training, and people are trained, they work, they're competent, and then you can walk away. But I think that's the really important bit.
Thank you very much for such a detailed answer. I will refer to our potential clients in current one. Good. Moving forward, my phone question. Looking ahead, how do you see the role of C4E evolving in the tech industry, particularly with MuleSoft?
Yeah, I mean, you know, within Network Rail, we've got lots and lots of potential, but C4E in general, I think, like I mentioned earlier, and we're starting to look at this now, is what's going to be the impact of digital transformation over the next few years, especially in the light of what's happening with AI. You know, everyone that I talk to at the moment is AI, you know, how's it going to affect us? How can it benefit us? I think we need to be quite careful, because the different types of AI that are around, you know, we've got generative AI, we've got predictive AI. Some you have to, and I suppose it's almost like setting up the C4E again. You've got to think about what you do want to use, what you don't want to use, and what benefit it can bring. And also, because my career has been a long career, and I remember many years ago talking about artificial intelligence back then, although it was much more primitive then. And I did it as part of my degree course. I did a module on artificial intelligence at the time. It's much more developed now, but it also can be quite dangerous if it's not used properly. So I think those will be one of the challenges for a C4E as well. I think there will be much more focus going ahead on data integration and data quality. And I say that based on the AI argument again, because, like I said before, MuleSoft Anypoint platform is not in itself a data quality platform. But you could, and I've written an article on this, you could actually write some data quality APIs if that's the way you wanted to go. But I think the C4E in the future will need to be really careful about data transformation and the expectations of the business, because AI trained on bad data will be bad AI. And certainly, in Network Rail, we've got safety critical systems. When we actually go out and inspect the track or make repairs to the track, the track is actually accessed through what they call access gates. And if you go to the incorrect access gate, it can and has led to serious incidents. So we have to be really, really careful about data quality over the next few years, I think, and also the expectations that people might have through the use of APIs. And one of the things that I constantly do is tell people that APIs, in most cases, are not going to improve data quality. So I think that's one of the big things. I think also over the next few years, I think C4E certainly needs to be at the forefront of communications. And we need to accelerate agility. Now, AI is obviously part of that acceleration, or could be part of that acceleration. But certainly in Network Rail, we need to accelerate the way that we can deliver to our customers. There's a big focus on getting data out to the passengers and the general public. So I think the C4E has got to focus on the best use of our resources, and certainly looking at the funding that we've got and the best way that we can actually use it. So, and to a certain extent as well, feeding back to MuleSoft and Salesforce about the issues that we're actually finding. And I think the more that C4E, the Centre for Enablement, can do that and feedback, then we may actually be able to influence some of the development of the platform. Flex Gateway is another big thing that we're looking at the moment, and universal API management. But we have other challenges in Network Rail that, like I said before, we have to overcome before we can move forward.
Just questions that got to my mind listening to you. Do you see some potential for C4E go beyond MuleSoft ecosystem? Because I don't know any other framework that managing integration, managing data quality, and data transformation. I don't know if there is something else existing on the market that's available as a framework, as approach. Should we consider potential for C4E go beyond MuleSoft ecosystem? What do you think?
Yes, and I've written an article before, and I think there is quite a lot of material out there that talks about the difference between a centre for enablement and a centre of excellence. And we've seen in the past that a centre for excellence can become a bottleneck for organisations, and that's one of the things that the Centre for Enablement doesn't look to do. It's a distributed, or in some organisations, it's a distributed structure. It's not all centralised. It can work with other parts of the business. that's not how we work in Network Rail. It is fairly centralized, but like I say, that's one of the reasons you need to understand your business. But I think some of the key lessons and some of the key issues around communication, certainly those lessons could be taken beyond the Centre for Enablement, certainly in data integration. You know, the idea of establishing foundational assets is not a new one. You know, we talked many years ago about systems that were logically decoupled but functionally cohesive, and that was like one of the founding things of not just, or microservices really. You know, they're logically, functionally cohesive but logically decoupled. So I think we can learn lessons from the past, certainly, and we can take those lessons from a C4E into the future to say, if you're in the right organization, and you know, you've got the right people in place, it doesn't necessarily need to be a C4E. You could have like a C4E, just thinking off the top of my head now, you could have a C4E or similar organizational structure as a data quality area. You know, there are data quality tools that are out there, which, like I say, MuleSoft doesn't claim to be a data quality tool, but there are data quality tools out there which could assist you. You know, and we're always looking for other parts of the MuleSoft family, or the Salesforce family, I should say now, like RPA, that could actually assist us going forward. So I think there are lessons that certainly the C4E could teach to other areas. Whether they're called C4E or not, I don't believe they need to be, but the principles are very much the same.
Thank you. The last three short questions. The first one, any final thoughts or advice you'd like to share with our followers and viewers, especially those aspiring to become MuleSoft mentors and ambassadors?
Yeah, I think one of the key things, and I think, you know, you and I are both this, you need to be passionate about what you do. You know, it's like we live and breathe integration. We live and breathe sort of enterprise architecture and that desire to actually integrate systems and drive reuse and, you know, and actually make the most of the tools that we've actually got for us. And like we are doing, I would always encourage people, especially if you want to be a C4E, if that's your aspiration to become a C4E, try new ways of expressing your experience. You know, everybody's got a lesson to impart to other people. You know, I've been through setting up a C4E from scratch, introducing an integration technology. I've been really lucky in that I've worked in lots of other industries before that. But, you know, think about, and I know it puts some people out of their comfort zone, but think about talking about what you do. Go to the meetups and, you know, eventually, I know you've organised some meetups, Maksym, so, you know, you can come along to those, can't you, and talk to other people, but eventually you could actually get to be a meetup leader, you know, once you actually feel confident enough to do that. Write about what you do. You know, it's free to set up an account on medium.com or another integration blog. The articles only have to be like 1,000, 1,500 words. If you've got something to say, try and say it, because it'll improve your ability to communicate with customers. And like I say, for a C4E lead, that communication is really important, I think. And if you feel confident enough, come and speak at some of the conferences. I mean, unfortunately, I've just missed the world tour in London because I was away on holiday. But there will be other conferences, and I'm sure there are in Switzerland as well. Be brave, and you know, and talk about the lessons that you've learned, because, you know, it's like you'll always hear people say there's no such thing as a silly question, and there's no such thing as a really bad presentation, because if you've got something to share, then it helps to share. And I know that's, for some people, that's really difficult, but I think if you're prepared to share your experience, if you're prepared to become a better communicator, then that's really what is needed from a mentor, from a MuleSoft mentor and an ambassador as well. Is, you know, maybe the mentors can engage on a one-to-one basis. Ambassadors are expected to do a little bit more, but you know, be confident and try and develop those personal skills. I think that's what it's really, you know, challenging yourself, I suppose, pushing the boundaries of what you're comfortable in doing, and it pays rewards.
Thank you. And second question: what could be your top 3 advice to other C4E leaders?
Okay, I thought about this sort of long and hard, because obviously there are lots of things that I could say here.
You already said a lot of.
Yeah, I've already said a lot of them, and that's why I sort of thought, you know, for the top 3, do I pick the ones that I've already said, or do I try and pick some new ones that I haven't said already? But I think, to be quite honest, I have to pick some of the ones that I've said already. I think the top one, from my lessons learned, and this is not just as a MuleSoft integration person, but as an enterprise and architect, and all of the other roles that I've done as a consultant. And you'll love this one, Maksym. Invest time in understanding the business that you're working with. Because if you don't understand the business and the people and the strategic direction of where the business is going, I think you're on shaky foundations right from the start. You really need to go in and do, and I would always encourage this, is to go in and do maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks of discovery. You know, find out who the key influencers are. Find out who has control of the budget, who has control of the business from a business point of view, but also from a technology point of view. And try and understand the interpersonal relationships. So, you know, I've been in organizations where everyone gets on and they really work well together, and, you know, you've got a really solid foundation that you can work on. Conversely, I've been in organizations where I've gone in to do a review and immediately you're finding that 2 people are conflicting, and then you're stuck in the middle. So building that understanding of where you are and how you're going to work, I think, must be one of the key, or the key pieces of advice for a C4E lead. And then you've got to, once you've understood that, you've got to understand where the strategic direction is. Because there's no point in taking a business in one direction if the strategy, the enterprise architects or whoever it may be that's defining the strategy for the organization, are looking to change. So, you know, you may go in, taking a silly example to almost review, you might go into an organization that's got Oracle as its, you know, its main system for finance and HR, but they want to swap across to SAP. Well, yeah, you can do that, but, you know, you need to understand that right at the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to go down a wrong path. And the final one, which won't be a surprise, governance and control of the platform. That really, really is. And I've seen that within my organization, in that, you know, we have third parties working in other parts of the business that are MuleSoft certified. They've developed APIs, but when we've actually looked at them, because we've got central control of the platform, when we've looked at them, they failed to use our foundational assets. If we'd have put those APIs live, they would have worked. They would have delivered what they were, you know, meant to deliver, but supporting them and monitoring them would have been an absolute nightmare. So that's why I say keep control and keep governance of your platform. Make sure that everyone that uses your platform is trained and has the appropriate MuleSoft certification for the job that they're doing.
Right. Thank you for your advices. And last but not least, tell us how can people connect with you if they want to learn more and ask some questions about your unique experience, about C4E setup and establishment, about MuleSoft, about mentoring in MuleSoft, about business, because you have a huge experience in many layers.
So I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to get hold of me. I think you've got my LinkedIn contacts in any case.
Yeah, all your contacts will be in details of this video.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the best way to get in contact with me. If you want to read the articles, then obviously medium.com, and I publish on substack.com. And like I say, there's the YouTube channel, which I'm sort of adding to as and when I get the time. And thanks to Maksym, I've got a series of videos to publish based on, again, something that came up and just sparked some thoughts in my mind. And it's like, well, you know, if I'm thinking these, why don't I just record them, and hopefully people will benefit from them. So yeah, so those to consume sort of stuff that I'm doing at the moment, but LinkedIn to get hold of me, and I will try and reply as best I can.
Great. Alan, thank you very much. It was a huge pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Enjoyed
it. Was the last one. And yeah, it was Alan Dalley, a MuleSoft ambassador and the head of C4E at Network Rail. And it was me, Maksym Dovgopolyi, CEO of SynergySoft, and also MuleSoft Mentor and Meetup leader in Geneva, Switzerland. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being with us all this time.